Welcome to the Alldus podcast, Women in ServiceNow series, a brand new series dedicated to showcasing the incredible women leading the way in the ServiceNow ecosystem. With your host, Ailsa Cassie, each episode will bring you inspiring conversations with trailblazing women who are driving innovation, breaking barriers, and shaping the future of ServiceNow. Whether you're an aspiring leader, a seasoned professional, or just curious about the impact of female leadership in the tech space, this podcast is your go-to source for inspiration and empowerment. Join us on this exciting new journey as we dive into the stories, challenges, and triumphs of the remarkable women making their mark within the ServiceNow ecosystem.
Hello and welcome. Joining us today, we have Aly Skidmore, the driving force behind the ServiceNow platform for Aberdeen as platform owner and also part of the SNUG committee in the UK. Aly, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really great to have you here for our first ever episode of the Women in ServiceNow series. Just maybe start off, let's hear a bit about yourself and your journey to now.
Yeah, thanks very much, Elsa. It's really great to be here and thanks very much for inviting me. I've been working in the IT industry for over 20 years now and started soon after university, actually, soon after I graduated in a company called Syntegra, which was the complex systems integration arm of BT. I moved up over the first few years through various service operational roles, delivering services to multiple different customers across multiple different industries, delivering in kind of a shared services capacity. So it gave me a really good grounding in things like the commercials, the financials, service modeling, service operations, and service controls and governance and team leadership. So that was a great start. And then a few years later, they decided to replace the legacy service management system that existed at the time within BT, within Syntegra. And there was an opportunity to take on the project management of rolling out the new service management platform, which was assisted by Axios Systems, for anybody who remembers that. The opportunity came up. I've fancied trying my hand at project management. Always found service management systems to be quite interesting. So I just put my hand up for it. And because we worked in a kind of quite a fluid kind of matrix organization, I was given the opportunity and kind of jumped straight in. Now, saying that, I sat for a good couple of weeks staring at an empty PID template with complete analysis paralysis, wondering what on earth I got myself into. But the good thing was I was surrounded by some really good people. I asked a lot of questions. I learned an awful lot and we got cracking. So over the course of the following kind of 6-12 months, myself and the team rolled that system out to about 40 or 50 contracts across Syntegra. And, what wasn't plain sailing the whole way, but it was great. So that was where my real love for service management systems started. I love the really tangible side of it. I love the fact that you can actually take a service design and make it a living, breathing thing. I love the building blocks that you worked with. I love the cadence, actually, of the requirements into build and the constant kind of customer engagement as well that went with it. As off the back of that, we were then kind of deployed across a number of different larger organizations or larger contracts to deploy the same platforms as part of ongoing operational transformations. My role then grew to take on design and transition, project and program management, but all the time kind of maintaining my hand in service management systems. My first introduction to ServiceNow was actually in about 2012 when I was working in predominantly a kind of outsource environment within BT, complex outsource. And we decided to use ServiceNow, that version of ServiceNow, to actually build the service management toolset or tooling around a shared service for business process outsource. What I found then was that my career was kind of starting to evolve more into a kind of pre-sales capacity, predominantly around outsource. And the cadence of the constant travel, the demands, the ebb and flow of pre-sale started to take its toll. And I have what I can only describe as a Jerry Maguire moment as I was walking through Luton Airport at 7:00 one morning when I had a what on earth am I doing moment. And soon after that, I had the opportunity to take voluntary redundancy and I left that organisation. And at that point, I had a total break from technology. I took 5 years out and worked in as a musical director in kind of community music, choral choirs, charities. I ran a number of creative projects for community and charity events. And then I realized I couldn't afford to replace my shoes, so I decided to go back into technology. And that was in about 2017. And I was looking for my next opportunity to get back into kind of running with service management platforms, and that's when the opportunity came up at Standard Life Aberdeen. I moved in, I joined the small team who were running the ServiceNow platform in Standard Life Aberdeen to help them mature the platform in preparation for the big merger that was happening between Aberdeen Asset and Standard Life Investments. And 2 years later, I was given the opportunity to take on the platform as a whole. And the rest, as they say, is recent history. So.
Well, I know I was going to say, much like ServiceNow has lived a few different lives in the way that it's evolved over time, you also sound like you've lived a few different lives in the last kind of 15 odd years. So it's cool to know that you found your way back to service management. You've got so many transferable skills from the world of, creativity that you were doing for a while as well. And now you're at Aberdeen. It sounds like you've made a lot work or a lot happen in your time over the years. So tell us about your ServiceNow platform and kind of how it's evolved since you've joined.
Yeah, so Aberdeen's ServiceNow platform started out in 2017, and it's fair to say it's had quite a rodeo since then. It's survived mergers, acquisitions, outsourcing. It's gone through significant growth. I mean, we hit its 7-year anniversary last year, and we jokingly called it the 7-year itch. And we when we actually stopped and looked at the platform, we realized that, in fact, it had grown in scope and scale by 7 times in those 7 years. So it just goes to show that it hadn't stood still at all. And even before I took on the platform, but also during my time as platform owner, we've had a huge roadmap of significant service improvements as well. So we've been rolling out CSDM, we've been rolling out AIOps and event management predominantly. We've got discovery service mapping. We've also got software asset management onboarded. We've got strategic portfolio management. And obviously, within our core, we've got ITSM, but ITSM we use to support everybody across technology, security, corporate, and a number of business users or business stakeholders in terms of delivering kind of middle office transactional services too. So it's a really busy platform. I've got a ton of stakeholders.
A trolley full of modules.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, definitely a shopping cart, that's for sure. And in the midst of that, I've got this tiny team. But I'm so proud of them. They're kind of small but mighty. So we certainly have no time to stop and stare. That's for sure. So, for example, in the last 12 months, we've delivered obviously the 2 major upgrades that come down the pipe from the ServiceNow roadmap. Over 600 development stories, 30 sprint releases, I guess, and a number of project scale changes and hundreds and hundreds of standard and routine config changes. So it's busy, but and the demand is really high, but I think we've got a good thing going. So.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I know it's exciting to hear how things can evolve, but it's hard to keep up with sometimes. And I can imagine as well, the role of platform owner, it's hard to define at times. It depends where you work, who you work for, and what's actually on your plate at that given moment. So how would you, to our audience, describe the role of the platform owner?
Do you know, this is such a hard question, but I'm going to give it my best shot. And you're absolutely right, because the only constant in all of these environments is ServiceNow. Around it is a different organization, different demands, a different set of licenses in terms of the subscription ServiceNow, a different number of stakeholders, different perspectives, different ServiceNow team in terms of shape and size. And amidst all of that, the global landscape that we're working within is shifting and changing constantly. When I think about what I've had to do as a platform owner, but also having spoken to some of my other peers in other organizations, what I think that every platform owner has had to do is to walk into that situation, with a shrink wrap bit of ServiceNow under one arm, a toolbox of other capabilities in the other, and a wardrobe of different hats, a good kind of grounding in best practice and a set of blueprint guidelines, and then you just got to roll up your sleeves and work out how to evolve yourself just to fill the gap, and that's how you have to approach it.
So in terms of the complexities of your role, Aly, do you think other people really kind of see it the same way as what you do?
That's an interesting one because I think that people who work very closely with me probably do.
Yeah.
People who are slightly more distant from what I do, possibly not, because and then again, when you're kind of networking across the community, I think that you also have to bear in mind that a lot of people that you're talking to have different experiences of working with platform owners in different scenarios. So everybody's going to come to a conversation with potentially a perception or a preconception of what you do and how you do it. But I thought, actually, rather than me try and explain it, when I saw this question on the script, I thought, let's ask my team. So I put a question to my team. I said, don't use business language. Tell me what you think I do on a day-to-day basis. How would you describe my role to me? And some of the words they came up with were fantastic. So what was it? They said air traffic controller, basically calmly coordinating and making sure nobody crashes was their explanation. Diplomat, peacekeeper, clairvoyant was one of the ones I quite liked. Horizon scanner. And then one of the guys who's a proper joker actually more humorously suggested that I was actually the front end of the pantomime horse. Which is not necessarily an analogy I'd like to put on my LinkedIn profile, but as I'll go with it. I'll go with
to laugh at.
Yes. I do network with a lot of other platform owners as well, and whilst the perception of the complexity of what we do from the outside might be, slightly might not always be there. I think that we certainly within our group acknowledge what each other are doing, and I think that the empathy and support we get from each other is huge and very important in that respect. Down to the simplest thing, which is, how do you say no? You've got somebody asking for a crazy demand. How do you say no whilst retaining and maintaining that good relationship with that person? So, it's quite a lonely role at times. So that networking opportunity is quite important and is very important, and something that I'm really keen to build out across the industry as well. The ecosystem talks a lot about motherships and rocket ships and all sorts of things, but we tend to joke about the fact that we feel a bit more like solitary spacewalkers.
Okay.
like out in this like infinite universe and constantly having to adapt to changes in that universe of demand, challenge, opportunities. And that's what you have to, and that's just the way that how the role progresses. I work with, as I said, I network with a lot of other POs, and some of the POs platform owners I've met in recent months have been some of the most resilient, creative, hardworking, and really inspiring people I've had the opportunity to meet in a long time. And they've also got, and it's very important in this job, is a hefty dose of self-effacing humour. It's a real privilege to know them, and it's a real privilege to be part of that community, actually. So it's great.
So as the centre of the platform, please tell me a bit more about some of the challenges that you're facing on a day-to-day and what really takes up most of your time as a platform owner.
The thing that I can't focus on the most as a platform owner, I would say, is front and central to my role is people. Yeah, I mean, that's with a capital P. So you call them stakeholders, developers, system administrators, senior managers, suppliers, partners, end users, business users, licensed users, whatever you want to call them, they are people. And as technologists, we can often lose sight of the fact that ultimately what we're there to do is to deliver tools that enable people to do their jobs to the best of their abilities. And that's really what we want to focus on. Within my team, our kind of mission statement, although that's a bit of a cheesy word, but it's very simple, which is build stuff and help people. Just build stuff and help people, and that's as simple as it. That's as straightforward as it can be, really. So, and it at the end of the day, the things that you're dealing with people is that behind every question that you get asked, there's no such thing as a stupid question, because that person just simply wants to understand. That person just simply wants to understand behind every demand, however ludicrous that demand might sound when you first receive it, is actually just somebody just trying to solve a business problem, or a problem that they've got on their plate. And behind every new piece of code and configuration is a developer or a system admin just wanting to do the right thing by somebody who's asking for their help. So ultimately, it's all about just working with the people and actually putting the technology into their hands to allow them to do what they need to do. So I tend to split those people into two things, and this is predominantly what makes me tick in terms of my role and what I consider to be the absolute priority for platform ownership. So I'm lucky enough to have my own team, but I also have a virtual team as well. Part of my team is outsourced and over in India. Your team is your biggest asset, and you have to invest your time and effort into it. Whether they're on-site, off-site, nearshore, offshore, onshore, virtual, remote, wherever they are, these are the people, these are the assets that you've got available to you that stand between you running a good platform and a great platform. Yeah. So what you need to do as a leader or as a platform owner is to build an operating model that lends itself to their strengths. So give them enough structure that you've put the right controls in there, but don't restrict them. That ultimately design and development is a creative process. So give them the space, allow them to do that. You need to give them their time. As I said, you need to give them their space, respect them, listen to them, and create an environment where they feel that they really matter and they feel supported and can learn. Ultimately. So the ServiceNow recruitment market, as you know, in Alldus is a fierce market,
and
and the battle for skills is really fierce. So ultimately you have to recognize the fact that at some point that people will move on, and you can't control people's careers. You have to let them make those decisions for themselves. But ultimately, what you want them to feel is that the time that they've spent with you has been time well spent, if you see what I mean. And if they feel that their time with you is well spent, then chances are you'll retain them for longer, and you'll also always maintain that relationship with them when they move on. So in my mind, if you look after your people, they will look after your platform, basically.
I absolutely love that philosophy. It's so true as well, and happy people want to stay with you long term as well, and you get the investment back that you put in. So that's your team. What about the people that are receiving at the other end of your services?
That's a good point. They're also very important. So again, I would just say you need to think about giving them your time. You need to respect them. You need to listen to them, understand them. You need to go out of your way and take your time to talk their language. And what's more important is that as a service provider, because ultimately that's what we are, don't expect them to talk your language. Don't try to wow business people with, chat about next experience or platform analytics or Now Assist. Ultimately they're talking to you because they want an outcome. They need a problem solved. They don't want a lesson in technology. I mean, it's a good tool and a good service if you've got it right. But at the end of the day, they just want to be able to trust that you're going to deliver that, and that they are going to be able to tick a box in terms of delivering more efficiency or more reliability in their business processes. So let's use an analogy, because I think it's really important that this is a really important point to me, and one that I think that we in technology need to kind of get our heads around in terms of the fact that we're there as an enabler, and that's a very important point for me. So if you, for example, hired a painter and decorator, you bought some wallpaper for your house, right? But your problem is that you haven't got a clue how to put it up. I am personally in this situation, so I'm really hoping every time I listen to this podcast, I'll be reminded to contact said painter and decorator. So you've hired a painter and decorator. If your painter and decorator comes along and starts speaking to you for an hour, telling you how good his wallpaper pasting table is, or the bristle density of his brushes and things, you're not interested in any of that. You want to know that he's got a table. You want to know that he's got wallpaper brushes, and you want to know that he knows how to use them. I mean, it doesn't really bother you about how good they are. All that bothers you is the outcome you're going to get. What you want to know: when they're going to do it, how quickly they're going to do it, how much it's going to cost, how reliable they are, and how good a quality the job is once they've done it. And so you need all of those things. You don't need to know the technology that's behind it and the tools that he's got in the back of their van to actually get the job done. You also need a bit of integrity with them as well, and that's important that you build up. And I'm using this analogy to explain that you need to build up that sense of trust with people and be honest with them, because. So if you had a bit of a crazy moment and decided that you wanted said painter and decorator to wallpaper your lampshades, or create some kind of origami swan out of your wallpaper and stick that to the wall as well, You came up with those ideas. You'd want the painter and decorator to have an sense of integrity, that they took you aside and gently explained to you why that was a really
Not
bad
going to work.
idea. Yeah. So, not that they just put it in, nod their head, deliver it, and then charge you a fortune for it, and then charge you again 6 months' time when they've got to come back and do the job properly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the relationship you've got to build with them. You've got to build a sense of trust. And that takes time, but you've got to be prepared to put the time into to make that happen. So, and if you do that, and if it works, what you find is that you're in a situation where you can have open and honest conversations with those stakeholders, and they listen to you as much as you're listening to them. And the outcome of that, the results of that, is absolutely worth the investment of your time up front. So
yeah, it's the difference between just a transactional service and an actual relationship that benefits everyone involved. I love that. We've talked a lot about how your job and the role within the ServiceNow platform has to evolve quite a lot, but the ServiceNow platform itself also evolves so much over the years. How do you keep up? How do you keep up and adapt to the evolving platform?
You're absolutely right, Elsa. It's a big challenge. So, I mean, there are so many applications and capabilities available on a Now platform at the moment. I mean, it's a really exciting platform to own. It's a great opportunity, but you have to be so versatile. The one important thing to think about is that you can't possibly know everything. In one meeting, you can be discussing automated controls and policies with, a risk specialist. And then the next meeting you're in talking to PMO or project and program managers about baselines and financial reporting in strategic portfolio management. Then you're in with the software asset management talking about software reclamation rules. Then you're in with the security team talking about access research. And then you're in with the DevOps team talking about pipeline policies and DevOps, integrations. And then you're in with the infrastructure teams talking about metric intelligence. So, I mean, it is a massive, massive difference now from where we were 10, 15 years ago when we were first rolling out service management systems and the focus was predominantly ITSM. The other side of that as well is that the ServiceNow industry or the ecosystem, all of us involved in that community are well versed in where that roadmap is going. But our business stakeholders are less so. The people around us are less so. And you can't really expect them to be because they have a number of other, they don't have the same time and they don't have the same focus as you do. And they rely on you. They depend on you to actually sift through, tons of information and just filter out and present up the information that's important. So, but there's a growing gap, I think, and has been growing for a few years now, in terms of where ServiceNow is positioning itself in terms of capability as an enterprise service management tool set, and where a lot of business stakeholders perceive it to be. Now, there is some perception out there still, and we come across it quite a lot, that ServiceNow is just a help desk ticketing tool. That's evolving, that's changing, but it's taking time. And so that gap between what the business understand and where ServiceNow is just getting wider. So you as a platform owner are finding yourself kind of like stretched even further, trying to bridge that gap. It's going to take a lot of education and it's going to take time. So we just need ServiceNow to have patience and support us in conveying that message. But at the point that the business chooses to actually embrace that concept of enterprise service management is a brilliant one, and ServiceNow is there to help. But then there's the whole journey of organizational change management to actually work with the business to help them to break down those silos, to get the full value of kind of orchestration across multiple teams and departments. That's going to take a lot of significant change, and it's going to take a lot of patience. Technology, by comparison, is the easy part. So we are adapting, we're getting there. It makes our jobs more interesting at the end of the day. So
all part of the fun.
Yes, exactly.
And as if your day job and all the things that you do already isn't enough, I know that you are part of the ServiceNow user group committee for the UK. I'd love to hear a bit more about what the committee actually does and what benefit you get as being part of that.
Oh, I love the snug. I really love it. And I love being part of the committee. The committee is such a great bunch of people, and I was so happy when they invited me to join them. So the ServiceNow user groups are kind of almost like safe space communities communities of interest, where clients can get together in an environment it's by users for the users, basically. So the concept is that we are supported by partners. We're supported by ServiceNow brilliantly, actually, I should say, but in a non kind of invasive, non-salesy kind of environment where we can stand there and share stories and share information and seek support and advice from specialists as well. So we tend to meet in person. They tend to be really lovely, kind of great atmosphere events, very active, very vibrant. And we also hold occasional virtual events as well to allow more people to kind of join from across the UK. So it's regional. So I am part of the UK SNUG, but there are SNUGs across the world. Yeah, so there's a massive network of SNUGs. I think in every country that ServiceNow is present. So it's great. So I've said it's a safe space. So clients or customers themselves will be encouraged and offered to actually come in and share stories. And so you sit there and you could learn from each other. You show solidarity towards each other in terms of supporting each other, in laughing with each other as we learn from each other's mistakes. When I'm actually hosting some of these, when I'm actually taking part in the events and helping to host, sometimes I just stand back, whilst the round tables are taking part, and I look at the hum of networking, and you see people exchanging details, you can see people kind of engrossed in kind of, one-to-one discussions about things that they've realized that they have a commonality with, a common interest in. The round tables are fascinating, and just like the knowing smiles and the laughter and the camaraderie that happens with the presentations, I just feel so proud to be part of that and to be helping to make that stamp on the community and helping to bring them together. So anybody who's listening, who's in the ServiceNow ecosystem, who's not yet connected to a ServiceNow user group, I would really encourage you to go onto the forum, find your SNUG, find your SNUG for your region, and sign up. And see what events. Yeah, most definitely.
Of course, this is the Women in ServiceNow series, so it'd be a shame not to ask you, Aly, as a leading woman yourself, what advice would you have for other women within the ServiceNow ecosystem or those curious about getting into the ServiceNow ecosystem?
This is a good ecosystem to be part of. I mean, it's diverse and it's global, and that's very important point to make. And I think by comparison to others that have been around for a little longer, I think we're quite lucky in the fact this is quite new. As also of that, it hasn't inherited potentially some of the legacy traditions that others have had. All of that obviously is backed up by ServiceNow themselves, who are, by their very nature, they are considered to be an excellent employer and are very keen to promote, diversity and inclusion as a mainstay in their ethos towards their people, and that extends out across the whole of the ecosystem. So it's a good place to be. Saying that, obviously we sit within a technology industry, our technology sector, and the balance isn't always there. You can find yourself feeling a bit outnumbered at times, but you're in technology, and that is going to happen whether you're male, female, whatever, for whatever reasons. And that's not always in a bad way. I mean, sometimes the people that create that sense of isolation don't even realize they're doing it. It's, people can get carried away, and you just have to go ride it out, basically, ride with the times. So I would say to anyone, not just women, who are thinking about either more coming into the industry and want to talk to people about it to understand more about it, or maybe in the industry and feeling a little bit like they're swimming against the tide, just to persevere, just to believe in yourself, because platforms like ServiceNow require such a diverse range of skills. It's not just about technology, it's about understanding service, it's about understanding process design, it's about understanding data. There's a wealth of skills that come together to make a good platform, and there's a role for everybody who wants to lend a hand to it. There's, especially it's seeing as this the women's series, I would say that there's a tribe there for you. So there's plenty of us, and find us at the SNUGs, find us at the special interest groups, find us on LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. We're all here, and none of you are alone. So even if you just need a sounding board for anything, there's a community out there, and if you don't find us, we'll find you, don't you worry. So
Nice. And is there any kind of particular challenges that you feel like you've maybe faced over the years because, you're leading women in technology, or what's your kind of experience been?
I've been in the industry, as I said at the beginning, for over 20 years now, and my goodness, things have moved on a great deal in that time.
Yeah.
I can tell you. I'm sure, like many women of my age, have got stories to tell about, behaviours and scenarios that they've experienced in the early stages of their career. But we've lived through them, and we've come through the other side, and we're making progress, and that's been happening for decades now, even before me.
It really has.
Yeah, I mean, you only have to read. Have you read Lessons in Chemistry?
I haven't, no, but I
You
will add that
must.
to my reading list. I
Yes.
will.
Action point from this meeting. You
Yeah.
only have to read that, and I'm sure many people who are listening to this have, to appreciate that the very fact that you're even hosting a series about women in leadership positions in technology just goes to show how far we've come in the last 50 to 70 years. So that's a massive step forward, and we should celebrate that. But we've come a long way, but we're not the whole way there. The very fact that companies still have to report on gender pay gaps, and the fact that they have to actively and constantly promote diversity and inclusion means that it's not ingrained to the point that we don't have to talk about it. But we're not necessarily going to win the battle in our lifetime. But let's do it for all of these amazing diverse scientists, technologists, engineers rising up in the generations behind us. Because if each one of us can lay one brick, in our time, at least one brick, then eventually that bridge will get built. Yeah, and we'll all have made that contribution. And I think that is the thing that keeps me going. And I think that all of us should just think that we're not going to win the war, but we can. We're not going to we might not win our individual battles, but bit by bit, we will be making our contribution to the war. So,
definitely. And Aly, I think that really rounds off our episodes quite perfectly, actually. Our first Alldus podcast, Women in ServiceNow series episode. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on board, Aly. I've really loved being able to speak to you, get to know you over the last, couple of weeks putting this together. Thank you so much for joining us today, Aly. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what's to come.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Elsa. It's been lovely to speak to you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.